Actually, no, maybe better from my notes.
Have you gotten a chance to try out the camp stove yet?
Try what?
The camp stove, the one that you
Oh,
got?
I didn't want a camp stove. I want a standing paddle board.
Oh, I thought you.
Then I
got that.
try it, yeah.
Pretty good. Is it working well?
It is good.
Yeah.
It is, it's a good one.
Alright, you're on YouTube.
Cool, thank you. Fancy. Overwhelming system. Oh, that's great. Okay, well, we're going to. Thank you so much, yes. Switch here. This was supposed to be quick in some years. Just like everything else. It's a little bit longer. Okay, Bryce, I think you can still hear me. I'm going to forget my laptop here. Yeah, we're making sure it's working, and I've got one page left on my notebook. So, we're doing here today. We are playing GIS Policy Committee. GIS Policy Committee, we're gonna have a bit of an agenda here, I'm not quite calling it order yet. You guys that got the invite, you should have all got a invite to this folder. And did you guys all get that link to this? Yes, no, think so? Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Did anybody get a chance to look through it all?
Not really.
Not really?
I read some of the minutes, but
Okay.
I looked at like the previous meetings minutes and saw where it left off at.
What I'm gonna do here is I'm going to. Oh, okay. All right, so we are being recorded, this is being recorded on my Google Meet here. And then we are broadcasting this live on YouTube as well. This is May 28th. Right now it's 10:09, so we're running a little bit late. This is for a regular meeting for our Grand County GIS Policy Committee. I'm Matt Sonseros, I'm the chair. I'm also the IT director here at the county. Present here also got Quinn Hall, he's our mission administrator. Kenny Gordon, is our IT support tech. Bill Jackson, is road supervisor. Glenn Arthur, you're the road supervisor. Got Lucas Blake, our surveyor. Got Dr.
Charles,
Dr. Charles.
Assistant City Engineer and GIS person of the State of Oklahoma.
For five. And Jay Svensson from Sheriff's Office, James Murphy, our County GIS Specialist, and Elisa Martin from Planning and Zoning. And then we also have Bryce Rogers online. Bill Holsey is coming. No,
I don't know.
we have more than enough here to make a quorum. The first thing on this, is a quick presentation. Well, I'm gonna say quick, but a presentation on this lovely committee here. And its creation, its duties, its expectations. And then after that, we're gonna appoint some officers. We'll look over minutes from, when we met last, and this has been over 3 years now. And then we'll go over our discussion items, tech committees. These are the last tech committees that we had. We'll look at some training opportunities real quick, and then we'll talk about upcoming GIS stuff. Around this table, we have a lot of people who have a lot of different expertise in mapping in all sorts of different ways. And we all lean and need GIS and love all of our data and need it for various reasons. And part of all of that, at least with this policy committee, I created out of a task force. And that task force was ultimately created out of an IDP. And that IDP of mine really started off as being just, hey, Dave and Donna are retiring. I know they're retiring. I just want to make sure that their data is backed up so that when their replacements come in, we can move forward. That quickly progressed into everything that's in this lovely folder, and not everything. I've got a whole bunch more other pieces that go into this, but we did meet several different times. I had a task force that was assembled. And with that task force, we really looked at, what I was doing, one with the backups and where our data was at and how our data was being handled, who was handling it, the lack thereof in some cases. And so I got together a group pretty similar to what's here. Some of you guys were actually on that one. Cortez is here, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Will you please go bring them out of the office and tell them to come over here pretty please? One of you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
You got a cattle prod?
I got one.
I was gonna say, might need 2 people. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, you're welcome to look through this task force and the various components and how it kind of came to be. Ultimately, what we settled on is to move into like an enterprise type of a solution for our dealing with GIS files, access, permissions, otherwise. Because prior to that, we had Dave out in the road department would come over to Fauna, and Fauna would mostly keep it updated, and then P and Z would have their own thing. They were kind of keeping their piece, and they'd update here, and then the sheriff's office would always need data, and everybody's kind of running from one to another to another to another. It's really not very helpful when everybody's doing it like that, right? Because when you get those kind of things, it looks kind of like something like that, where it could be any which way, shape, or form, and anybody's getting data from any which particular silo that you want to pick that from. So God knows what version that is, if it's correct, if it's been updated, who's the last person that touched it. Is it quote unquote official? Has it been referenced? Has it been done? All of those different things. Right? And so really what we came back down to is to create a much more of a type of centralized piece where you have actual catalogs that are out there, like our base maps and stuff through HRC and through Esri and whatnot. But all of that ultimately feeds back into our enterprise SDE. And that SDE then publishes that service back out to everybody, including the public. As of now, we publish so much stuff through, or James, through the recorder's office for the parcel viewer map, for instance. I mean, everybody uses the heck out of that thing. There's so many other different products, and we have your sign button. John, what? Come on down, find a seat.
Oh,
Got
great.
lots of room for you. You sit right up front next to me. We got John Cortez.
We're out.
John Cortez, our county recorder. Thank you for being here, John. Yeah. I was just talking a little bit about,
Too late.
about the task force and kind of the assemblage of all the stuff that went into creating where we're at now, right? You were here for some of those conversations. And so in that, I went through and I put together this implementation strategy. And this implementation strategy essentially lines out all the stuff that we're doing today. Is that it puts in place an enterprise SDE, it goes over all the stuff, it hires the GIS specialist manager, person over there to keep track of all of this stuff. We deal with data permissions, we deal with hardware, we make sure that our staff and our hardware is actually done and all of this other stuff. Now, all this is well and good, right? And we can all look at this all day long and say, this is fun. This is almost 10 years old now. Out of this strategy, came together. But please,
Do you want to be sharing your screen or are you cool with not?
I'm fine sharing.
Because it's not, this is, what you're doing up here is not showing up on YouTube, just so you're aware. I don't care what you do or not, I'm just saying.
Yes, I was intending to share my screen. Where to show my agenda still, yes? On YouTube?
No, it's just,
Not showing it.
just the,
I don't know. What does it show on
just the out,
that? That's okay.
because you're sharing Google Meets, not Zoom.
Yep. Sure. Sure, this is a fun exercise on where you go, right? How else do you find it works without just doing it?
Oh. All right.
And so through all of this, guys, if we're able to get this. We will go full screen. We're there now.
Yes.
Right. So through all of that came this resolution. This is resolution 30948. And this resolution was passed by the county commission. And it lines out essentially this policy committee. This policy committee lines out, we're more or less a steering committee. But we also create technical committees out of here. And those technical committees essentially report back to this committee. This committee then has the ability of reporting back to the commission to make recommendations if needed for money or staffing or needs analysis or whatever else. It's also there to help you back you up with whatever various projects are there if you guys may or may not need it. But it really is, it's considered to be an advisory board. It goes in through the whole setup of the meeting. Again, I'm welcome you to read through this. Again, that's resolution 3094A. And that was passed and it was signed off on. And it's kind of interesting that if you look back at the minutes for this meeting, this was actually moved by Chris Fair and seconded by Mary again. For those of you that might remember the last meeting that we had Chris Baird in here. And he felt that this whole committee is rather de minimis, didn't like the whole thought of it. Thought that this was a staff meeting and that we shouldn't be doing this in some sort of public manner. I don't know one way or the other. All I know is this whole thing was brewed. Bill, thank you for being here. Bill Olsey. Bill Olsey, thank you. Just talking about the progress of this whole thing over years. years and years and years.
You're the only one who doesn't applaud, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Mr. Baird, he did recommend it in the, but he was a commissioner, to go ahead and approve it, was passed unanimously and whatnot. We did meet several different times. We've gone through a number of different technical committees. We've reviewed things like roads and parcel fabrics and importing stuff into the SDE, importing stuff into what we have now as our database, making sure that those data exchanges are all correct. Uploading stuff into the state. There's been a number of different committees that have happened out here. You guys all know me. There's been some crazy things that have happened in my life in recent years. That's part of the reason why we haven't met. I'm not going to blame that on one way or the other, but this body hasn't met for like I said 3 years. The last time we did meet, Chris was in it, and he really went through the whole thing. We don't need to meet publicly. The lawyers, when they reviewed what we've been looking at with bylaws and with, or not bylaws, with all of the task force and with the ability to be able to recommend to the commission and essentially be able to have funds. And then I have funds that are taken out of my budget that are used for James's purposes, particularly for GIS licensing, for hardware, for a bunch of other just GIS costs. James's position is shared with the recorder's office. So half of his job is to deal with that. The other half is to manage and deal with that stuff. So in the 3 years we haven't met. Again, I would encourage you guys to look through this draft of our minutes. We did go over a number of different points and pieces. We did dissolve a number of the various technical committees that are out there or were there. Past meetings. Past meetings. January. Wait, how long? We'll look at these minutes that are in here. I know I'm kind of scrambling all over the place with this, but does anybody have any questions? I want this to kind of be an open conversation on what this committee is and or anything about this policy committee. I want to hear what you guys' thoughts, what your expectations are on all of this. If we continue to keep moving forward with it, or not.
I mean, I would wanna, just on a more like high level, understand that maybe there is something to what Chris Baird was saying in terms of like, at this point, 10 years after the implementation thing has been implemented, or maybe partly implemented, does this committee need to be so formal, and should it just go to being like a more of a staff meeting? I think it should definitely exist in some form, but I could see it maybe being less formal.
Yeah, no, I agree.
No, I agree with Lisa at the beginning where the county was getting into the GIS game and started to see like the future effects it could potentially have. The whole GIS thing was kind of a game changer at that point, and now this is everyday operations at this point. So I don't disagree with that. I like the idea of meeting more regularly and having more formal policies and having more of a clear and delineated direction that moves us forward with our GIS policy, but perhaps at this point it is, I can really wait. I agree with you.
So I know, I mean, there's definitely still some things to work on, right? Like we need to figure out addressing.
I think the addressing committee needs to get back together and go over. There's been a lot of turnover.
Could that sort of be part of like Could that be
It was a
part of
subcommittee
this?
in-
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, it was.
absolutely.
I see.
So addressing committee was a technical committee? Okay.
What I'm looking for here is the head of. Head of road department. I'll stop, put it in here. It was just kind of like it might actually be in one of the strategic plans. Essentially, that's what this meeting, this policy committee is for. Is we take technical committees. And those technical committees are absolutely staffed groups, like they're working committees, right? We don't call them committees. And they are tasked with goal X, right? Whether that's addressing, whether that's, implementing stuff into the sheriff's office, whether that's rolling out new stuff.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say the zoning word, but the zone, yeah, that one. Or any other given project, right? Or goal, aspiration, whatever you want to refine it down to. The job of this committee is not to get out into the weeds at all on any of those particular items. And that's why I preface this whole thing. We all sit around the table, we all have lots of knowledge with GIS, we can go 100 which ways to Sunday on it. The whole purpose and goal of what this policy committee is to be able to take all of those staff reports from those various committees, bring them back to here and say, this is what we've done, this is what we, accomplished or not.
Mhm.
And what roadblocks are standing in our ways or otherwise. And the job of this committee is then to turn around and make sure that we're allotting the appropriate resources to that project to make sure that it's getting the attention that it needs.
Mhm.
Not only for, the data and veracity and all that kind of stuff, but make sure that we're actually meeting deadlines and that we're actually sort of, rolling out planning stages and otherwise.
Mhm.
I'm a big believer in pushing out like, missions and values and let's say, we're gonna do this for X. And go out and plan. That's kind of where this committee comes in now. And while I agree with both your statements too, this part of this committee too, and again, a lot of this is all based on just best practices and whatnot too, just looking at other large organizations, particularly counties and government in Utah and whatnot too. Is, having any kind of system that's out there without any kind of governance, when you have multiple different stakeholders that we're just asking for issues. And at this point, we haven't met for so long, and I'm seeing enough stuff of people that are, one getting frustrated on, not knowing what data is or what data is what. And then, two, on the other side, I'm frustrated because we're paying for, different services and abilities that are out there that, utilized. And none of this is being brought up to light and all of every ounce of that. But that's why I wanted to hear, but this table, like, if it's not beneficial to everybody to continue doing, this type of thing, again, it's just, this committee is mostly an advisory, advocative type of committee to follow up to the commission. If we find stuff in, that in our meetings, like this doesn't have to be a long drawn out formal meeting every time. I personally love it to just be a nice, quick, quarterly, half hour. Hey, this is what we did on this committee, this committee, this committee. And this is what I know is coming up. I need to throw this resource at them. Okay, one and done, who's on the committee? And then we all go our separate ways. And then the technical committee itself, technical committee is definitely much more staff informal, meets as needed. With the expectation from this committee that it's going to come back in a quarter. That's what the bylaw for this committee says, so we're supposed to be quarterly. But that technical committee should report back every quarter onto the status of whatever this committee ultimately deems was correct, necessary or not. Does that clarify a little bit about the policy committee?
Yeah, definitely.
Is it?
No, and I agree that based on that discussion, that if the committee wants to submit a recommendation, or something to the planning commission, it comes across better as having come from a formal committee that
Sure.
has met and adopted some policies from staff, so.
Exactly. And to that end, anybody who's watching live on YouTube, you can still see me or hear me. This is, policy committee is always open to all staff, any department, any office. The members that are listed here in our bylaws are technically the voting members. You know, and all we're voting on is, you know, yeah, should we really approve it, you know, that got done, this didn't get done, you know, we need to actually throw this resource at X. Like, I don't want to make this some big, long drawn out thing. Let me say, does anybody else have any other questions on what this policy committee is, does, expectations,
One thing,
please?
could we include in one of our next meetings, like a training session on how we utilize
No.
the enterprise
Nope.
stuff? Okay.
Nope.
So
However,
how do we go about that?
however, what we can do, and you see one of the pieces in here is review training opportunities. We certainly can put in here, we can create a tech committee that does training in-person thingies if you'd like.
Okay,
And that tech committee can then meet as they need to with applicable staff, and they can meet wherever we need to. And sure,
okay,
I don't mind helping out and doing some in-person, you know, trainings and other stuff. And James, you're kind of being volunteered a little bit, I know you know that one, but
That's okay. I'll do the training. I don't mind either.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But you know, as far as trainings, otherwise too, you know, with James, particularly and GIS staff here. I've said it many times, you know, we're just trying to be data stewards. We're trying to do all those pieces, make sure that it's available and that it's correct to the best of our knowledge. We're not trying to do people's analysis, and James isn't everybody's puppet. But at the same time, we're more than happy to create committees and address those things in some sort of realistic fashion. And, you know, so if we do need James to go out and do X, then do that. Say we Bill, like James, like I know one of the last items on the minutes from this last one was, you want to go out and GPS culverts. I don't know, that's still an outstanding thing. We'll talk about it here in a minute, but like that effort, right? Like if, you know, you need James to go out with his fancy thing. Like, I don't mind doing this.
You have a layer on our current sign has the culverts on it.
So I was gonna say, I bet you probably have reflected all of it by now.
Most of it.
But just use it as an example, right?
Sure.
More than happy to use it. Anyway, anybody have any other questions on the duties or expectations of what this committee is?
Not a question. I like the idea of it being like a public, open facing committee, just because all the data does stretch out into the public eye. So I think it is kind of a good thing to have this out in the open where anyone can look at it.
Yeah,
I
no,
think that's a nice side to it.
I agree. I kind of like the openness part of this committee. Pretty good because we're just, you know, talking about what is on everybody's topic, what we're working towards, and it's open facing, you know, we're not hiding anything here. There's nothing to hide, right? But I want to make sure that what we're putting out and what we all think going off of is correct. You
I just got a comment too, just more of the maintenance of some of the things that we have done, you know, we just recently. Through the efforts of James and Glenn and of course myself, but maybe those two. Updated our road data and mileage and things of that nature. And so questions like, was that information shared with AGRC? You know, those kind of things.
just procedural kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it should be, technically, it probably is, but it probably got there from the state maybe, but it's something we could check into. I don't know.
Good.
Just questions like that and kind of maintenance items, as well as, a few years ago, we finished up the B road and D road easements on Sitla that we got perfected. Where they recorded at the recorder's office. They should have been if they weren't.
Okay.
You know,
Let's chat about both those things here in just a couple minutes.
yeah, sure.
I'm sure you might have a couple other things too. Does anybody have anything else about the policy committee itself? Do you guys, are we all on board that this committee is a good thing?
Sure.
Or are
Yeah.
you not like this committee?
I like the committee.
I'm seeing lots of head nods, like, okay. So with that, bylaws say that I'm the chair. But I am to appoint with advice of y'all, a vice chair who is to do the duties of what I get to do if I'm not available. And then a secretary. Secretary is responsible for taking minutes. And member attendance, blah, 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 blah. And then you send it to me, I sign off on it.
Matt, my eyes not on the being chair or such, but is that the policy say you need to be, or because you were the chair previously, or what's going on?
It just says that I am the chair. The chair shall be the operation.
Oh, that's how it's being rated, so the IT person.
And then with approval, I appoint the vice chair and secretary.
Oh, okay. You
And-
pointed,
and-
we don't elect.
Yeah. And then. As far as the makeup of this committee, as part of the resolution, it's myself and administrator, sheriff's office, road department, recorder's office, building, floodplain, P and Z. And basically anybody else that they designate. So, who would like to be, or would somebody like to nominate somebody to be vice chair?
I'll nominate myself.
Thanks, James.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think I have I do a lot of the action items. I think that's a good perspective to have on things going on within the committee that might provide some realistic insight on projects and things of that nature.
Perfect. Love your acceptance speech and
Yeah.
everything. Everybody. Welcome our new vice chair.
Yay. We'll take it.
Maybe someone else want it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't throw it out to anybody else. Anybody else want?
Are
to be
you
vice
kidding?
chair?
Yeah, Bill, do something.
Cool. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Secretary,
Want to do secretary too? He volunteered
I can't
once.
do both. I can't do both.
that's all right. I've done all three, so.
Yeah, I know, right?
But secretary, it's not that hard. Most of the stuff I do, I try to transcribe anyways and then Drew's preparing and putting back and saying that. I can do it. It shouldn't necessarily be me because I'm talking and I'm creating and I'm approving. I'd like somebody else to.
Can I nominate Kenny?
What's that?
Can I nominate Kenny?
I don't think I'm technically on this, but I'm just kind of.
I can designate, or y'all can designate too. Like, it doesn't have to be just somebody else that's sitting at this table.
Okay. I mean, I'm not opposed, but I just wanted to make sure that that was okay.
It's up to you. Anybody else? Want to be secretary? Anybody else want to be secretary? Kenny,
Kenny's it. He's not opposed.
Kenny,
thank you, Kenny.
thank you. Welcome to Team Kenny.
I
Yeah.
start bossing around.
Most of this, like I said, it looks very formal, but I'm really trying not to make it that.
Right.
So. Next piece we're going in. Approval of minutes, I'm gonna move that we postpone this till our next meeting. If that's all right with you guys. Just because I don't think you guys have looked over unless y'all have, did you guys look over the minutes? Should ask.
I looked over the minutes. I invited DDOT, because that was one of the last things
Yes.
spoken last minute, that the city and the county should have a better relationship when it comes to GIS related tasks.
Yep.
So since I've been working here, DDOT and I, we've had a pretty good relationship, so you're welcome and invited to every single meeting and to be a part of any of the decision making.
I agree with the city and county should work together. We share the roads, we share utilities, we share data, so. And there's sometimes it's confusing about to like who own what, who responsible to what. Yeah, I'm excited that this committee will help that solve that
Yeah,
problem.
definitely, absolutely. When we were forming all of this, we had, like all of a sudden, it's not like,
Eric,
Eric.
Johansson,
yeah, Eric Johansson, he was definitely part of this whole thing, and
yeah, he's amazing.
I wish at the time that we were able to do a more of a cooperative agreement with the city, because I could have gave all of the stuff I have to you guys for free. But I can't anymore.
Like the data?
No, like licensing,
Oh, yeah, that would have been.
yeah, it would have been awesome. But they got keen on it, they don't allow that kind of stuff anymore, so. Did anybody else read the minutes?
I glanced over,
Glanced over them?
essentially, I vaguely remember some of that stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it literally was just for me listening to the recording the other day. It was about an hour long and it was a bunch of Chris and like, just kind of poo-pooing and everything. Do you guys want to say that we approve the minutes or do you
I
want to
think
table?
so. I don't think it's gonna change the direction we're headed right now, one way or the other.
It? All right, so I'm gonna say it's unanimously approved then, right? Yep. That's first right there. And then discussion on tech committee reports. I'm not even gonna try to give a report on any of these, because the addressing committee has been through so many different iterations. And again, the purpose of this policy committee is not to get out in the weeds on any of these. The addressing committee was initially tasked with looking at the procedural items related to ongoing addressing here at the county. That's a good way of putting it. Close enough.
So my question on that right away is there state statute guidance for addressing?
It's a great question, Bill.
That's where
I would like to think so.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay.
Um,
So if the counties and cities or whatever just can make it up as they go? There's no guidance from any state statute?
that's a great question.
Okay.
So again, the purpose of this committee is to put together or to hear reports from subcommittees. Subcommittee in this case would be the addressing committee. The addressing committee subcommittee is, I actually think it was possibly moved to be dissolved last time, but I put it back on here because I don't think it needs to be dissolved. At this meeting, I want to assign people who are on said committee. And then you guys get together and figure out what that is. And then when we meet again here in a few weeks, reported. Hopefully I'll have a much better answer. You'll probably be able to tell me all those things. Because some tells me you want to be on that committee, Bill.
Me? Not really. I'm just curious.
Well, John, you're on that committee. Because
John probably knows the answer.
John should know all these answers.
He's just being tight.
He is being tight-lipped. I'm gonna put
Nobody else.
Bill Pulse on this list because he's interested in addressing. Put in Lisa on this list. Or I'm gonna just put P and Z or.
P and Z, yeah, because it might be somebody else.
P and Z. I'm happy to help facilitate this one, but James, you're on this one.
Okay.
And again, I'm happy to help facilitate all of these. I'm not trying to necessarily get into them. But addressing committee, the kind of the last place that it was left, and the reason that this committee really came up was because of the holy scroll of addressing and just trying to get a handle around how we're handling that procedurally, very specifically. Like, how are those things determined? Who gets what? How are those blocks numbered? Making sure that we're following consistency with, and James, you can correct me where I'm, or anybody really, where I'm wrong, but with roads, right, you have like ranges and addresses and pieces and north and south and directions and pieces, right? Everything odds on one side or the other.
Yep.
And you have to follow back and forth, and we know we have some sections, particularly out in the valley, where there were issues for whatever certain reason over years, right? That we've looked at, and they've been numbered as they are, and essentially what came out of that committee in essence is that we're correcting it as we go, and that we put together like a little more of a formal process. Is that more or less kind of what you
Yeah,
guys
I think
think of like the last time we
another
talked about
part
it?
of it was with dispatch and
Yeah,
EMS.
figuring out how it gets located, whether they're using their system or the GIS or if it's.
So,
which
So-
is
so
more
sheriff's office
accurate
needs to
for
be
the,
Part of it, and I think post office. I know they have a bunch of rules that they get upset over us with.
which is more accurate on the emergency response. What do you guys generally use?
GPS is usually the most accurate. If we have good addressing in there, it's great. Part of the problem, one of the conversations that came up in one of these meetings was the same street names. That was an argument that we had, was the Park Lane, Park Road, Park Drive, and then there was the same names in Castle Valley and in Moab. We were trying to move away from that and trying to articulate that we need to move away from same street names. So we have to we go off of GPS a lot, off of the 911 system.
I think through the, development reviews and whatnot, oftentimes people will, give a suggested street name, and I don't know if we've ever, I haven't been that involved with it, just really drilling down and making sure that we're not duplicating, which, I think that's still the process, right? And when somebody, development in their SIA, don't they have their street names?
Yeah,
In those?
that's definitely checked on subdivision plots for new street names that you're talking about.
Yeah,
And the last time we've had one happen where some type of
Yeah.
road and Pete San Juan County.
right, exactly, that, and,
No comment.
yeah, that kind of rolled for a while.
Yeah, so like subdivisions have to be named different by state statute. And roads have to be named different too.
So that's something you check when you're doing the.
I try to check it when I'm naming something, but then I also review process, John's like questioned a few of them and stuff too. Cause we have to, since Moab uses the same address as San Juan County, we have to kind of check it.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like we're getting with that Abbey subdivision, and I know John checked on some of those, cause some of Abbey subdivision roads we're trying to use. Cause they were trying to use,
Pack Creek.
or we're trying to use names that were in books or whatever, or yeah,
Mm.
Pack Creek Ranch had some of the same roads.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
So it's all great discussion, guys. As you've been discussing, you've also been signing yourself up for this committee. So, I encourage you guys to get together. I'm more than happy to facilitate whatever you guys need. What I'd like to see when we come back, next time we meet, is a bit of a summary or overview of addressing, current procedure of, what we're doing. I think that part of that was already generated and probably already exists.
Do we have that in here somewhere?
In what?
Minutes? The policies we came up with, some of the stuff we came up with out of that.
There was nothing formal that really came out of it. There's nothing formal. I've got a couple of different planning sheets and things that I've used in the past. But more or less it came back into discussion with Jeff Whitney, John, Frank, I think yourself. I think Bill, you might have been for some of the, back then too. And like I said, what came out of that committee, at least what was reported back here, was more or less that, you know, we've got an okay handle on what's going on. We know where our problem areas are. We're doing better going forward. And, you know, like you alluded to state statute and some other things, you know, there's some things that we have to abide by. You know, with the emergency response, you know, addressing, I'm not saying it's going the way of the dodo, but you know, the MSAG Master Street Addressing Guide is continually being talked about, being appreciated, being appreciated. And more addresses and everything is all being tied to address points. Our 911 system and by NENA standards and whatnot needs to rely on address points and GPS locations. And cross-reference that by geolocation to coordinate what response fastest route I should be able to get. So, I mean, I can go way out in the weeds on 911 with you if you want and how that process works.
No,
We're not gonna get into it today. But in short, though, the stuff that James ultimately gets and gets recorded ultimately, those roads, datas, addresses, otherwise, all of that stuff gets pushed up to UGRC. UGRC, which used to be AGRC, is tasked by our public safety to push all of that information to that one system. And so when a 911 call happens, you get 911 end up at your dispatch, it maps and plots it as best it can based on whatever all of those things are. And then assuming that the system works, then it spills over into our RMS, into our spilling system, which has its own mapping, which we're updating with our own imagery and otherwise too. So there's ultimately two systems that kind of run, but
they're integrated.
yes, they're married to space somehow to form. But does that sound like a reasonable expectation out of the address committee to just come back with a short, sweet?
Are we gonna have somebody from dispatch or sheriff's office
Jenny's also right there.
and post office? You want post office involved or
Postmaster,
outside agents?
They-
just
Get
be
my
like
local
a,
milk there.
we can just invite
Probably
people kind of
appreciate
ad
it.
hoc.
Exactly.
Usually I have a contact, we have post office contact for address and her name.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thanks, Bryce.
So again, with this committee, it's who's on it. You guys make contacts. If you need to reach out to postal service, if you need to reach out to the feds, if you need to reach out to whom, please do. Happy to help facilitate. Publishing web apps and to end users. This is an original discussion standing item that we put on our original tech committees. I'm not going to dissolve this one, even though I don't have anything on it specifically. I'm hoping we can add a couple of things on it. This is space for projects, for department projects, for things like marketing efforts that need mapping or stuff like that, or other things that involve mapping and people making apps, web apps or integrations. And things.
Be like the Grand County Class B road app that I was showing the other day, like things like that.
Do you want to publish a web app that shows Class B roads?
I was thinking about, I don't know if it was gonna be a public thing, but I was playing around with the idea of making a web app that the road department can look at and use. I don't have a full goal in mind yet, but I thought it'd be a good way to share our data with the road department.
So
Some other departments need to have that, like for surveying the Adelphi roads, actually.
There, okay.
Example, like the one that went up. In Trevor's from the Canyon, I did that, it was a
Okay.
county road.
is so is an example of a web app like our zoning map that we have? Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything that you go online right now, that you're logging into it. And I'm gonna throw the disclaimer out there again. Right? GIS is not for official service unless you're that guy right there. Right? We're not using it for, otherwise it's all for reference, right?
Right.
Official purposes, otherwise go to that man. Or you for,
Nothing, yeah,
in whatever scope that you're gonna make a
nothing in a web map is survey grade
perfect.
measurements. It
I
won't,
think you put that disclaimer on there.
yeah, it won't stand the test of time in court and law or anything like that.
And it's knowledge that's correct to the best of our
Yes.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Right, if it hasn't been recorded, or if there hasn't been something, or if it was recorded incorrectly and it overlaps with something, or something to duly, he has to record it, right? He's got to draw it. Once it gets to his office, there's no room for interpretation. Right, that's the diligence of the builder, the developer, that did bring up, right? And we're all servants, yes, we can notice things, but if somebody does something wrong, it's the most up to date that we have, right? So one of the things that's come up in web apps and ingesting that kind of stuff is kind of to your point, is that this is something that is used by a lot of people, right? Like within the organization. I could publish it even externally to like Moab City to a point. But within ArcGIS Online, because of the setup that we have, I mean, we publish our core, stuff that's there, like parcels and whatnot. I've done some cleanup on the information that we put up because we've been hemorrhaging some data. But there is some demonstrated need for the ability to have people log in, like using it used to be collector, I always want to say collector.
Field map.
It's field maps. And field map, and there's a couple other ones too, so there's
The field map is not view collector, but there is different survey 1, 2, 3.
let's just be field map, but I'm thinking of it.
Yeah.
But pull it up on your phone, be able to. And authenticate access, right? So that way, if I can lock down the, I know that it's Lucas accessing, it's Elisa accessing. Whatever it is, I'll build and build, right? Like you can pull it up and yeah, I don't mind giving you full layers of, full attributes for whatever our layers are, so you can have your valuations, you can have your stuff. There with it, like that's fine, I'm not gonna issue that out to the public. In the past, for some reason, it was there, but we're not doing that anymore. That's. As we've noted, right? But that sounds like something that would be helpful to everybody. It's something that would be. Yes. Like a internal, I say external, but user based, like it's an internal use. Externally published map.
I think so,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Sorry,
on that,
I can't tell if you're like looking at me or so when you're asking.
That's okay.
Or anybody.
Or what?
Or everybody.
Or everybody?
Yeah,
A little bit of both.
Well, I think that
I
many people would use
gotta
it,
keep guessing.
especially, in the road department, but I think other departments could use it. I think what you're saying though is in particular on the roads or any of our data for, anything we have on there for this GIS road infrastructure is not gonna be able to be manipulated, right?
No.
Changed or other, or
It's
attitude. or otherwise.
just reference.
Yeah,
You pull it up and you can say, like, and Debbie, like the assessor, like she has use for this. I've tried to offer it to her a couple of times. But we go out on somebody's property doing assessing, right? It'd be really helpful to be able to, not only have to print out your whole tax roll, know where you're going, which is what she does, but it'd be helpful to pull it up and say, oh yeah, this is actually valued by Marcy in 2011 as this, and Now there's 3 buildings, there was 1 year before. Put a little note in, you know, I go. It's not necessarily meant to be a assessment tool, or like a road check tool, but we can make those, like if.
And that could be happen, and sometimes I see value on that, like you go to road and it's being paved on your data, but if you see it's not paved. It's easy to, you know, click and change it at that moment, sometimes it's easy for employees to like at the spot update it, because. You can write a note, but it will be forgotten, and so it is not a sensitive.
Yeah.
James would probably.
Yeah, I would, I think it would have to be, I don't know the right term for it, but, certain people that have access to do that.
Only authentic
Not
access.
not any, and every employee.
Nope.
So some people can have a viewer access,
Shenanigans.
some people can have a field worker. So GIS administrator give a seat to you, and you can do certain things, depends on your seat. So if James thinks you need the update, he can give you access to update, but not rest of your team.
Man, you get a lot of authority there.
Yeah, that's how the science map works. Only Glenn's account can add signs to it, and stuff like that. And change it. I think me and Glenn are the administrators for that, or something like that.
What happened to me?
I can throw your name on there too.
Matt,
That's about one fact.
what is the policy of like sharing data to the public? Like what is okay to share, what is not? Like at the city, we don't like to share the whole water data. That's our policy. We don't like to share whole sewer either, because people can have that data, and since we keep updating, they may have multiple copy of it, old versions. So that's why we would rather to. You request from us, we give you snapshot of something. For the water, we call it out for safety reasons. That's the policy. They don't share it.
I love the thought. Give me 1 second, let me get through these, and we'll talk about it under the next plan,
Oh.
because I do want to talk about data sharing. Aside from internal used, externally facing web app, and those of you that we're talking now on that. Is there anybody else that has a demonstrated app or need from anybody that you know of right off that needs some help with getting assistance? Trails
The wander thing,
or any of it?
I wouldn't want to weigh on that without talking to Maddie first.
Yeah,
I do.
I was gonna say that's probably a good idea. Is that be involved, she'd be involved in this.
So this is just supposed to be, like I said, kind of open operation needs and status discussion here.
I'm happy to discuss the wander app with the group if you want me to.
We can here in a second, but I wanted to write down here about data sharing. And DR's point. And do we have official policy?
Not that I'm aware of.
Don't do it. That's the official
Do what?
policy. Don't share,
Don't share?
I guess. If we don't have a policy, then that's it. Don't do it. Don't share.
I've spoken with the UGRC about this a little bit relating to parcel data. And I've kind of had the same question, like, it's all public data, but do you want it to be readily available out there? Or do you want to kind of have people to make a request or something along those lines to get all of it? And they inform me that they like to have just very basic information within the parcels readily available to the public, where it's just name as an ownership, maybe the site address of the parcel and parcel number, that's about it.
Acres.
Yeah, exactly, and then if you
That's
want.
kind of what we
anything-
have right now, right?
Yeah,
Pretty limited.
pretty limited, and then enough information where if you wanted to inquire further, you can have that and go in and ask the recorders or the assessors and get the full picture of the data.
I think the cities is real similar with that too, pretty basic information. I don't even think they have the address on it.
So we don't maintain addresses, we don't maintain parcels,
Gotcha.
even the street names, everything's done by the county.
Gotcha.
So I
Oh.
refer my map to James' map, if James' map broke, mine's broken.
I
too.
didn't know that.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Also, we charge, that's what I get. So we have been charging for the maps only for $20 for a map. But now on, we're going to charge for the GIS too. So when you request the GIS data, we will charge you. So maybe that will be if it would be interesting into
What kind of data are you giving them?
shapefile, KMLs,
Or,
so developer,
Attributes.
let's say they're interested in building an apartment in a certain parcel, they like to know whatever utilities are on. We give them a snapshot of the area they're interested in. So if they like the shapefile, usual shapefile works for engineers.
that's fine, I'm saying, what attributes are, like, is it utilities? Is it
Yeah,
roads? Is it-
utilities, most of the city-owned water, sewer, and storm drain. So those three data comes from us.
Gotcha.
They'd probably have fire, where the fire hydrants are, anything with public works type
But
stuff.
we have elevations, manholes has elevations, slopes, water has size, material. So, but they need to go survey.
Which is good, because half the mountains are buried in the county, so
Yeah,
you can't find them. But yeah,
but you
surveyors should go and check all that for the engineer, measure their own rivers and stuff. It's just to help find where stuff is.
You say you charge $20 a map,
Yes.
but what does that mean?
So it's on the fee schedule for ED maps are $15 and no, EDs are $20 size or online maps are $20 too. And if it's smaller than that, they don't charge. But if you making a new map and it doesn't matter, it's a digital map, right? It's need to be printed, so we charge $20. If it's already existing one, you want to print one for you, sure, I can print one for you later. But if you asking me to make a new map for you, you need to pay $20 for the map. Now, but it will going up, so we will ask for the GIS, if you request a shape file, you need to pay for each layer. And I search around, look at what other county does, that's how I refer, we come up with some numbers, yeah.
I think the county has that on their fee schedule as well, but we just don't have that many that I'm aware of, inquiries about buying the map or the shape files.
I don't think we do, actually.
We used to,
I don't-
We have
well, the road department.
we have a fee schedule for making maps in
Do
the
it.
recorder's office. It's if they want an 8.5 by 11, it'll be $2. 8.5 by 17, it'll be $5, and then anything larger than that, it'll be $20.
Gotcha.
But most of the utility maps will come from the water and sewer district there.
Yeah, that's what,
I
maybe,
don't know if they've been charging or not, they just usually send like a screenshot of their map for their area, ask for whatever.
yeah,
Because that's all I'm looking for is an aerial photo showing where the sewer manholes are, so I can go out and find them.
Oh, okay.
yeah. Maybe like Ben Musselman would be
Yeah.
a good member to invite here too.
Yeah. And Wissa was on the task force and whatnot, created all of those too. They're definitely one to have in here.
Or designate. And actually, up there on that publishing web app stuff, it says Bill J. Put or designate. Just thinking ahead.
Yeah, or.
These are all assumed to be or doesn't be.
Oh, okay, great.
I don't necessarily assume.
I don't like assumptions,
Go
but
home.
we'll go with it.
I assume you're going to go and delegate. As far as data sharing, and James talked a bit about talking to UGRC here. I've been doing an exercise, which is ongoing, looking at all of our data, all of our processes and all of the different things that we have, host, collect, keep and otherwise. With state legislation, we're now obligated to pay attention a lot more to personal privacy and information that we are gathering and or disseminating out. Web apps being a perfect example of it. The web apps and parcel viewer map and otherwise that's there. We have gone through, but I'm not gonna get into the specifics of it here in this meeting. But we have gone through recently and, like James said, we culled through the data that we went, asked some advice from UGRC. I've asked the advice from a number of other different counties otherwise, on what we should be publishing. And that is what we are publishing now. As well, we were publishing before. So that being said, well, this is good. But data sharing, with the new legislation that comes out, it very broadly defines what personal identifiable information is as something that can more or less tell you apart from somebody else. It used to be based on all sorts of classifications, all sorts of different things. Here with this, we are prohibited from publishing personally identifiable information that could be tied to something specific that you own. There's some weird ways of interpreting that. But one of the big questions that I had about it was exactly this one here of like, so I publish a parcel map right now that has everybody's information on it. You can click on my house right now and you can show that that's me. Yes, I live there, that's my address, and yeah, you can, right, that's person identifiable, so you can drive to my house, and where I was. Am I supposed to be doing that? Well, there's been a lot of him and hawing and back and forth. I don't really have a straight, clear answer on it, but more or less, I was able to talk back and forth to different stakeholders, and we were able to kind of break it back into or add the line in there, like unless it's for like an official purpose or something to that effect. So everything that we're doing here is just hunky dory still, right? But that doesn't say that coming down the road, legislation likes to write things that they don't necessarily understand what they're writing. But that all being said, data privacy and all of those things, I do want to have an official policy that very clearly states what we are publishing. Because we're required to. That's part of the privacy policy. It needs to not only include, what we're publishing, but how did I get that data? How did you give it to me? What am I using it for? How long am I keeping it for? Who am I sharing it with? And when do I destroy it? And I need to document all of those things. Anytime you get into anybody's other office or, trails or, God knows what. I'm always constantly looking at that content collection and making sure those things are trying to be abided by. Now that being said, there's versioning, there's all sorts of different stuff that comes in. That's why I went to the enterprise license in the first place, so that we can all grab something and you can reference it, you can analyze it, put it in the base, what your purposes are. In all of that, that was to get away from doing like file shares and that kind of stuff with a shape file here, a shape file here, a shape file there, kind of stuff where you end up with a developer who has something that you may have requested something a year and a half ago. And now they're coming back at you and saying, oh, wow, this is, well, yeah, we've had 7 iterations since then. So I don't want to really get back into that entrenchment of file sharing. But I know that it's happening. And I don't really know the best way of moving forward of trying to get people back on the same page of let's get into some sort of a common central place that we call reference off of. You guys have any thoughts on that? Like, moving forward, on how you'd like to be able to access that data? What's easiest for you?
I think the easiest way might be using the RGS online hub that's connected to our enterprise. You can create groups within the RGS online hub. Pretty much every department already has a group on there. It just never was really utilized that much. And we could add all the layers from our enterprise account. And you can have your own copies. I could set the sharing level where only people authorized within the group can have access to it. and with that, you'll be able to download local copies for yourself and check in with it if you want an updated shape file. And you won't be messing with the original integrity of the shape file that way. You'll just have kind of copies of your own, and you can check back with it and get the most updated version on your own manner.
That would be awesome.
Yes. I think that'll be good. I'll have to look in with it a little more. I haven't done it personally yet, but I think it seems pretty streamlined and pretty straightforward process that Esri's been working on for a while now to work on solutions for this kind of problem.
Any other thoughts?
So county has enterprise, city doesn't. So I think for that reason, I would not download anything because you have enterprise. I'm assuming everybody has a login. You don't need to worry about the seats, do you?
That's my only concern with the hub is that are we gonna be limited by users?
Well, what I was thinking, within the group, yeah, it'll be user based where I was thinking that only people within certain groups would have the ability to download data from the hub.
Yeah.
And not just everyone would be able to download it at the same time.
So what I'm saying is like downloading data make things confusing because someone is download and then that's their truth until they won't gonna go back. So if everybody has a license as a seat, they should just refer that data, not download and do.
Right.
So at the city, we don't have that. We have to do KML, so they can use Google Earth Pro, which is so complicated. Everybody has a one update one, because we get updates, waters get updated every month. So I think if you have that tool, I would use that, so.
And I like that tool too, because we have the same thing is that you're dealing with credentialed access. And so with that, you can set up, one, that you have access to be able to see the data. Or two, you have access to be able to, possibly extrapolate, download, or deal with it. Or three, you have edit ability to be able to update that data. Or four, you have administrator delete the data, but I think granularly, I think with our licensing, when we start talking about this kind of stuff with Hub, I don't think that we're hindered by a license count. If we do, I want to say it's like 250 seats before they would start bothering me.
Yeah, you guys must see.
Yeah, I think would be plenty of time to be able to have enough coverage to be able to even extend like usage out to, select users over the city, otherwise be able to get into some of them. So yeah, I love this idea. Anybody else have any other thoughts on exclusive data shared access? Cool, like that.
Does anyone want data that they haven't been able to get to?
I just need that parcel data in the zoning sheet file, so I can, like, sooner than like.
Yep, we'll get this right this morning. All right, I don't want to belabor this to death. Jay, if you'll look into this more when, by the time our next meeting comes around, hopefully I'll have a little bit more of some bones of the policy for, sharing data. As well as hopefully our privacy policy will be a little more hammered out here. Review of training opportunities. I'm going to kind of gloss this one over. And just remind everybody that we do have an enterprise license agreement. The enterprise license agreement does provide you logins and access to the whole backend suite of Esri. That has a bunch of different training stuff in it. Does anybody have anything specific though to training that they know is coming up, or opportunities for training, or seeing no? So again, this one today on this meeting, I mostly wanted to just get this meeting back up and running again. So I don't want to belabor a whole lot of this either. We went over the few projects that we do have. I think if we can focus on addressing and just getting some of these web apps and stuff put in place, focusing back onto the features of what the enterprise license provides. And a lot of things that we've named out here, by the time that we meet again, and by the time they'll actually be able to create an impactful GIS project. Now, that being said, does anybody have specific technical committee that they would like to create right now. That you will be tasked with dealing with, and then you get to report back here next time. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Does anybody know any GIS projects that are coming out that are just gonna be involved in?
Okay, I wanna put something on, let's see if it can be. So storm drains, I'm having a problem with Lane, our street, supervisor. So there are some storm drains in city, county, UDOT. So there's three different entities responsible for maintaining those storm drain pipes. So when I talk with my coworkers, we sat down and we look at our lines and say like, which ones you maintain? And I saw there is not a grid or any sense sometimes. Sometimes it's a UDOT right away, they maintain, some of them not. It look like it's county, what we do, or they think it's in the city, but they think county maintains. So what would be to meet, bring people together to like, these are you maintain versus I maintain, or come up with the agreement to who own what, so we would clear that problem.
Very specifically to drainage.
Yes, that's what I'm seeing the most.
So I have no problem making keeping an eye on that. I have no problem making a tech committee for it too.
Yeah,
If you
that's-
guys have enough interest in it, right?
Yeah, without going in detail, I think mainly the confusion or the needed, compromise maybe is generally along the UDOT right away. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of.
Yeah. And I think that what the guiding purpose or the guiding, policy or the guiding, responsibilities for maintenance would go on to the UDOT right-of-way standards. So essentially, if I'm understanding right, either though 191 is the UDOT right-of-way, city, in the city limits, the city takes care of the sidewalks, storm drainage, curb and gutter, those kind of things. Is that correct?
Not all necessary, like I realize our street department maintains some storm drains, some of them not.
Is that right? Even though it's in the UDOT
Yes.
right away?
And when I talk with someone at the UDOT, they have the same problem, because the other day there was a meeting for emergency meeting at the senior house. Were anybody there? Yes. So UDOT did a presentation, storm drain, coordinator with Brandon. And he said they have the same problem. They don't know what they own it, and then they've been audited by the EPA. And then they got in trouble and they want to solve that problem. So we are on the same topic. So what can I do? So when I talk with Lane, I create a new field that say this is city maintained. We think these are county maintained. I can share that data with James, and someone need to confirm with him, and then we need to just back and forward it and fix the data.
I wonder really how difficult it is, because I think just from the UDOT standpoint, if it's in the city. Like I mentioned, the city maintains it. If it's in, if it's in that UDOT right away and if it's in the county. And they've never come to me and said, well, you should be responsible for this in this UDOT right away. On storm drainage, I'm just talking storm drainage. And said, you need to maintain that. That should be your responsibility. Now, I know county roads going into UDOT right away, the county's responsible, and there's some nuances about signage and so on and so forth, but nothing's ever been brought to me about storm drain. So it's probably a good idea to address it, I suppose.
Like, does the city have a layer storm drain?
We do.
Could we kind of overlap that with the county storm drain master plan?
It probably,
This Idea of
yeah,
culverts
well,
and ditches and things like that.
Sure.
We can go through and figure out who owns what.
right. Well, yeah. I won't
Just
go
in
too
the
deep
interest
into
of
that.
time, is there any other current impacting GIS projects anybody else would think of that's pressing that needs some resources or attention
Yeah.
thrown at it?
Lucas, do you think the monument grant that's happening is worthwhile, or?
We didn't get it all out on time,
Okay,
next year, but Still, I mean, you don't need a grant to get monuments.
Okay,
So that's why, like, whatever GIS department, if there's any ever monuments you need or whatever. Like coordinates for these. We know we can do tie sheets and stuff for them.
okay, that'd be great.
One of the discussions from last time, but that's what I said, I could have sworn you were here last time, but, was talking about Thompson or Cisco. Mr. Thompson. Laying out corners out there and then Thompson's a mess, is it not? Is that the one that's a mess?
Yeah, that doesn't really have anything to do with PLS corners though. That's,
No, I'm not saying, it's not saying corners at all.
yeah,
I'm just saying there's issues with stuff up on the flatlands up there.
Yeah.
You guys have any projects that you want?
I know Castle Valley, the aerial photo maps seem to be off out there really bad, so.
Say Castle
I
Valley.
haven't looked at these, but I see if it changed, I know historically, because I'll get calls for people want boundary surveys, because they think somebody's yurts on their property, but it's like, no, it's just the. Like, you can see the fence and the property lines over here, it's like just the aerial photos aren't matching the.
You know, what those not.
Yeah,
sitting right, it's not
there
protected.
there is some. Areas out there too where the BLM resurvey that don't match in the corners with the subdivision, of the town subdivision, so.
What,
So that's more what I'm seeing is like, yeah, we're maybe someplace you can see that. Because I don't have coordinates on section corners that my mapping's not like really
yeah.
matching up to like the fence lines very well or something. Some areas are not gonna match fence lines because it's just surveys,
Yeah.
surveys are messed up, but
Okay,
some areas, yeah, like Castle Valley, it just seems to be off by a shift with aerial photos, so I don't know if section corner monuments would help on that, or
might,
subdivision corners, maybe coordinates for photos or whatever, so.
might be, yeah, I think a lot of the Castle Valley legal descriptions for parcels too were like based off old fence lines and kind of things like that.
Well, no, Castle Valley is all a subdivision, so it's all shifted like uniformly, so I
Okay,
just don't think the subdivision may match up with like. Cause I know the BLM resurveyed it, but
okay.
definitely you have the BLM corner here and you have a subdivision corner here that's supposed to be the same spot, they didn't match up, so.
What, do you know when that BLM survey happened? Okay, we'll probably get, yeah.
Anybody else?
One more thing, so, recently, Grand Oasis, trailer campground, trailer. Park. So,
It's a resort.
they resort, they want to improve some of their, houses, and then we figure out there's a mess there, because site plan they have, it doesn't match with what we have. The one they give it is a mess, so, Barry and Corey drive there or walk, and then they just put each address, they exit out, it's not there, so we corrected something. So that, I don't know if those address point is the same as your address points, but we have now newer data, we cannot take the responsibility, like, those are right. But we have something like, we mapped it and put the numbers, so I don't know how we can share with that information with you without taking a responsibility, because we don't wanna mess up the EMS or emergency points too. But I'm seeing most of trailer parks having this problem, because they move it, they put something else, or they do different orientation, and numbers are totally different than whatever previously approved. So I don't know how you can go update those.
I know Jenny would be very interested in having trailer numbers and grant.
Good.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah,
Because right now, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that they plot, because you call Grando, it just. There's an emergency in Grand Oasis.
Go where the smoke's at.
Pretty much. It's a bit of a show every time we should go down there. So if you have any addresses, I'm sure that we would be very interested in at least loading them into the Snowden server, if not onto the 911 side. Anything else?
I have an upcoming one, but
What's your upcoming one?
so the we did, and this will be involving Maddie, so we'll wanna check with Maddie, but. GCAT, we helped out with a grant and we did get the grant money to update the non-motorized trails master plan. Which is like over 10 years old, and it's gonna involve an active transportation master plan. So we would wanna, so all of the old maps that are in that plan, all the GIS data shape files were lost apparently. So
What plan?
the non-motorized trails.
They've been
master-
lost. Is that what you said?
Yeah, they don't have any. The person who was working on that apparently has passed away,
Yeah, and
and
did you check with his wife?
no, I don't.
That's who I checked.
Okay, so I mean, I would think maybe Maddie has tried, but I don't, but that would be kind of,
And this is trail data?
yes,
I have
countywide.
countywide trail data that came from Trail Mix.
Yeah, so
Um,
I'm sure there's a bunch of, like, there's all the trails that are out on the public lands, and then there's trails like that, were recently brought up at a commission meeting that were controversial, that we don't want to make public, but that need to be mapped in order to identify where we would want to request easements or work with property owners.
Work with property owners.
Work with property owners
Request
to request.
potential easements.
I like that clarification.
Thank you.
Word. A lot.
It would not be, yeah, this would be kind of, would be a lot of things, but that would be one component is, the GIS map, like getting that data back for all the public lands and just everything that was in that original plan, I guess. We don't have the GIS sheet files.
Let's chat, with me and James with that one.
Okay.
We'll talk a little bit about it. Anything else upcoming? Current, anything else we want to talk about? All right, do we want to make a tech committee for a storm drain thing? You brought it up, Vidar. You seem
Oh,
interested in
I
it,
mean-
Bill.
I'm not saying that it's needed, but we definitely can meet. I don't know if it's needed, like, committee itself, but we need to communicate and look at it. Chair, watch.
Well, we need to have UDOT involved, right, as well.
I mean, we can work together for our ends and we can involve the UDOT too. Yeah, it will be great if three of us sit at the same time, but also we can.
So I'm gonna,
Figure
I'm gonna suggest to create the technical committee. I'm gonna put Vidar and Bill on this thing. And I'm just gonna ask you guys to politely get together at some point before we meet next time. And
Sure, I think,
talk to UDOT or whatever.
well, I think we'll have to, because I need a better understanding what UDOT's policies are as far as storm drainage,
Mhm.
Yeah, let's do that. I think I can arrange it.
And it could just be their local resident engineer, or if they're even, if it doesn't good, still the maintenance shed. I think.
You would know that better than me.
Yeah.
The person I know, his name is Brandon, and he's in this region's storm drain,
Four
region 4.
and Bill,
Coordinator, storm drain coordinator.
it could be your designation.
Or designate.
I
I have a handful of designees I have available.
Does anybody else want to make any other, tech committees? Perfect. We're not gonna dissolve any. We're gonna keep same priority schedule. Future considerations, I think we've talked enough about it. Other than future meeting date. We expect this committee is supposed to be quarterly.
No. This is
May.
it's January of 2021.
It's almost June. What is,
4 months from now.
September, would that be right?
well, let's call it June, so June, July, June, July.
3 months away, so
September.
be right on the cusp of
September
August.
month is your packet week. Public steering committees, I will be at UAC, September. 10th, 11th. Maybe the next week, September 18th. 10 a.m. That work for everybody?
Free that day.
Yeah, I'm good.
That's September 18th. Yeah. All right, cool. I really appreciate you guys, sitting and hanging out with me. It's fun.
Thank you for putting the meeting together.
Yeah,
Very
thank
well.
you.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked this back up.
It's a good thing, working together, communicating. Good. Anybody else have anything to talk about?
No, I just want to go on record. I appreciate James' work and what he's done on, in previous, in particular for the road department and, some of our data and he spent a lot of time in researching and did an awesome job and glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. I love working for the department. You guys are.
You're the best.
Yeah, thank you.
Most people don't know that. Promote that.
I had on that too. Yeah, James not doing his job. He's looking for how he can improve. From outside, I can see that too.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that. See, James, you really are doing a good job. It's not me just like, blowing smoke, No, we are really, really happy to have you. I don't like you happy.
Thank you all. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
If you need like a recommendation for a pay raise or anything like that, just let me know. All right, yeah.
All right.
Keep you around. Retention.
Retention, yeah. Government retention.
I'll sign on to that.
All right, cool. There's no real formality to adjourn, so this is adjourned. It's 11:37.
Yeah. Feel free to shoot me an email or